Well, hello there.
Hi,
How are you, Katie?
I'm doing all right. My love, how are you doing?
You know, it's going.
Still going?
It's still going.
Every day.
Every day.
Oh man.
Ah,
So hopefully it'll be going better soon.
Oh, yeah. That's I'm being hopeful here.
Mhm.
How was your week so far? Is it good?
Yeah, it's going all right. My dog's feeling a bit iffy at the moment, so I'm a bit
Mm.
worried about her. But she's hopefully she'll be better in the coming days.
Yes.
But other than that, doing all right.
Good. I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed for the doggy because she's cute. So cute.
Yeah, she's lovely.
Yes. So, do you want to do the introduction?
Oh, yes, that whole thing. Anyway,
please.
hi everybody. Welcome to all the films we judged before. I am Katie, and that is Lily Kay.
Not Troy Baker. I'm sorry. I am still, we are trying, but I'm still not Troy Baker. I put the beanie
I feel
on.
like we've got a pretty special guest who's close enough, and some would say even better than dear old Troy.
You're teasing. You're teasing, Katie.
I am teasing.
You are.
I think we should get on with this as quickly as possible. So
yes, go for it.
Go?
I introduced Ricky, so it's your turn now.
Okay. Well, we're very excited to have Jeffrey Pierce with us today.
Woohoo!
And here I am.
There he is.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Yeah, Troy Baker, but
nah. Like I said, some would say even better. We would say even better. Here.
Well, I'm honored, but there is only one Troy Baker, and we bow down before him.
We can do that. We can. I'm sure he would appreciate that.
How are you doing,
how are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
It's still the pandemic, the G-rated version of The Last of Us, living that day and hoping for a better ending.
One would certainly hope.
I hope so. I somehow do not want to live in that world. I don't know why, but it's not very appealing. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Even
I don't know where you get that idea from.
Yeah, what could be better? The freedom. Yeah, it is things are interesting. I guess safety is the barometer of whether things are going well or not. So I feel safe and staying safe and wearing a mask and trying to take care of myself and my family and friends and keep it that way until they get it under control. But that is unfortunately the world we're all living in right now.
Where are you at the moment? Are you in the US still?
Yeah, I'm in Georgia. Yeah, still in the US.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in probably about the time this podcast airs.
Yeah, roughly around that time, I think, actually.
Yeah, they would be maybe competing with some other news in the United States.
Yeah. Somebody pointed out to me that as of the time we're recording this, it's about 2 weeks away, and I went, Christ, where did the time go?
Yeah, the time could not pass faster. I'm ready for it to be here and done and get this mess of a human being somewhere getting the help that he needs.
Yeah. I think you're right there.
So we are hopeful. I was pretty hopeful in 2016 too, but
I feel like there's an element of understanding how much is at stake this time, because I feel like last time in 2016 everybody was kind of like, oh, it's so obvious that she's going to win, it's going to be fine. That kind of sort of
it wasn't that obvious.
Attitude is the reason why we've had such a strange 4 years. Even us in the UK, it's been the ripple effects have definitely been seen.
Sure. Well, when you tout yourself as the greatest democracy that's ever lived, and then you take all of the norms that democracy provides away, you start to understand how easily it can slip, and how without watching Obama speak yesterday.
Yes,
it was just regardless of what your politics are, he's a statesman and he's a gentleman and he's thoughtful and charismatic and held on to norms which he could have not held on to to his benefit. And so I don't think that there's a more stark contrast to be made. between the gentlemen who are up in position right now, and I'm hopeful that we can get back to having a democracy that is en route to fulfilling what a democracy ought to be. Although we haven't. I mean, historically, we have fallen short of being this great people-powered, which is what democracy means in Greek. We have not lived up to that.
Yeah.
But we can. We could. It'd be a better
It's
world
possible.
if we did.
Yep.
Absolutely. It's such a crazy system.
Talk to me November 4th or 5th. We'll know if it's actually working or not.
Absolutely.
I keep wondering if what would have happened if our dear friend Kanye West is staying in there.
Honestly, I'm not saying it would be any better.
It's just
I don't. Look, it goes. It's historical. It's human. Like this narcissism and the idea of, there is truth to the idea that anybody who wants that kind of power should immediately be barred from having.
Absolutely.
But you look at, Octavius Caesar. You look at Caligula. These are the idea of having power over everybody is intoxicating, and it brings sick people right to the roost. They feel very at home with the idea of, if I controlled everybody, everything would be okay. It's terrifying, but this is who we are.
Yeah,
we are looking at a reflection of ourselves as the whole of humanity right now.
Yeah,
in a way, definitely.
I'm going to make a really smooth segue and say you seem to be very interested in history, which I'm getting a lot from your book that you've written, which is part of the reason why you're here with us today to talk about your book, which I've got literally right here. Here it is.
I have it right there.
Excellent.
We were just saying before we started this that I'm about 80-ish pages in at the moment, and what I've been noticing is that you've got a lot of languages in there, which I was like, oh, okay, it's like so much like French and German kind of being spattered out all over the place. Yeah. But you seem to have a great interest in history, which comes through a lot in the writing. Is that was that part of why you wanted to write it in this time period, or do you actually, before we go any further, do you want to tell us what the book is about so that
please.
Everybody watching can?
Sure. It is a horror drama, I guess, set in squarely in the middle of the First World War in 1917.
Yep.
And the sort of concept is that on Good Friday of 1917, a biblical apocalypse erupts. And sort of the idea is that the tipping point of man's inhumanity to man reaches that juncture and falls off the cliff. And whatever supernatural forces exist in the universe decide to end the human experience. And the mode of doing that is that the dispossessed souls of every evil human over the course of human history, 70,000 years of Homo sapiens, rises up in the bodies of the dead, takes possession of those bodies, and goes on a killing spree. And people are being hunted down and killed for their specific sins. So the idea of the recompense, the reckoning for the crimes that you've committed comes to life.
Hence the title.
Yes. So that, it's sort of a little bit Dante's Inferno, and a little bit 1917, and the fun thing about it as a writer is the opportunity to really travel into history at the same time and go really down these rabbit holes more and more over the course of the books.
Yeah. It's
so that's the basic idea.
As I said, I am a slow reader, so I am not at the point where Katie is. But what I said to Katie is that for now I am confused, but in a good way. Like like I am trying to figure out that how it will all come together, because how I figured it out is that it goes on different timelines. And for example, I cannot place my hand as of who is the main character or who's the protagonist of the book, which I like because it's a new experience. Like, in other in a lot of books you immediately know that, okay, that's our protagonist, and here I like that I am not sure yet. Like, I kind of have a feeling, and I think my question is that was that a decision that you made at the beginning that it's you're not going to make it that obvious as to who to look up to?
But much to the chagrin of a handful of publishers who read the book at first, they were like, well, we don't know in the first 20 pages. We think we know who the protagonist is, but we can't tell. And then maybe that changes over the course of the book. And yes, that's intentional. I'm the first thing that I was ever told when I sort of dipped my toe into writing was a guy named David Milch, who did all the NYPD Blues and
yes.
The Western on HBO, and it was just a phenomenal genius level writer. And he said, if you're going to write, look at Flannery O'Connor, read her short stories, understand the medium from that place, because she's able to in 20 pages, in 10 pages, in 40 pages establish an entire world and history for her characters that is complete. We get a really complete understanding of who they are just from that simplicity.
Yes.
And she, she's really, really very good at understanding, in particular, because she's from Savannah, Georgia, the Southern mind, whether it's man, woman, regardless of race, she really gets in and creates full-bodied characters. And so as I approached this, I had ideas about who the protagonist was. And then over the course of it, I realized that if I'm successful, and if the book is successful, and some people are like, I don't know who to follow. But I think that there's the opportunity for people to choose their own protagonist in the journey and still be entertained and moved by the sort of journeys of everyone else.
Yeah.
And hopefully, ultimately, who the true protagonists are by the end of the five books. I finished book 2.
Okay.
That's
congratulations.
Book 2's done. Yeah, only 3 to go. That's good times. Hopefully, by the end, who the protagonists are a pleasant surprise.
Okay.
So that part of the sort of journey is, do we lose people that you love along the way, and at what cost do people survive and continue on? And is there a way to find redemption for things you've done?
Yeah. So are you kind of like George R. R. Martin and just gonna kill all our favorite characters off and be like, fuck it?
He kills in an arbitrary way, which to a degree, you have to admire as a writer. I think that is you are cutting down the tree. Like the tree is cut down. There's no going back there. But by the same token, that does get a little bit becomes a blunt instrument over time.
Yep.
The thing that I admire most about him is his ability to create cliffhangers within the chapters. He knows exactly where to end it to make you want to come back and pick the book up again.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope that I've been able to adapt some of that because that's the essence of drama, that you start one place, you end the opposite place, and you want to know what comes next.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I was saying to Lee, I've been quite enjoying the fact that the chapters aren't too long either, so I can kind of read a couple in an evening and then come back to it a little bit later. And feel like I've gotten a lot out of it, even in the small amount that I have taken the time to read, because there are so many characters to kind of really, and you do that thing where you go through and give them all like a heavy amount of backstory and understanding of who they are as people. Within a few short pages. So it's like, I've kind of got a handle on this person now, and then a page later they might be dead. So it's like like, okay. So, but I at no point have I felt this is unnecessary or anything. It feels like everything that happens is going to lead up to something much later. So I'm quite excited to see how that pays off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, logic is a really important part of the process when you're doing something, I think, that has supernatural elements. As a viewer, if I watch a program or a movie, and all of us, and we've got these fantastic ideas, but they don't end up connecting at a logic base. I get really angry at the laziness of the writer.
Absolutely,
100%.
And it happens a lot. So we got this brilliant idea. We're going to spend $200 million to make this thing, and it does not tie together.
Absolutely.
Like, wait a minute, why did no one discuss that? Why is no one talking about the insane thing that happened 45 minutes ago in the show? And so hopefully I'm able to bring that criticism to my own work too. I hope so.
We have to talk about these beautiful things in the book.
Oh my God, yes.
Because I am just blown away. And
they're so gorgeous.
So
honestly,
gorgeous.
Every time I turn onto a new chapter, I'm like, what's the artwork going to be like?
I have been blessed by since 9th grade in high school, a friendship with Jai, who's the artist who did these.
Yes.
And I wasn't really clear on what I was going to get for cover art at the beginning from the publishers. And so in between, they're like, we're going to come up with a concept for what we think the cover could look like. I discovered that Jai, who has never been an artist his entire life, was starting to paint. And I saw pieces of his work that were haunting and stunning just on Facebook. I was like, what the hell is going on? And I said, well, look, I would love to hire you to just do a piece of cover art for me. And he said, sure. And the next morning, he sent me the one that happens in the prologue, Harry fucking Moss, just the
yes.
infantryman, the sort of that beautiful thing. And at the same, like 20 minutes after that, they sent me the cover art, which I really like, which I think captures the book in an exciting way. And and I was like, well, now I have a piece of cover art, but man, if I had like 32 of these Jai, that would be great. And he said, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, okay, well, I'll send you a check. I can't send a lot of money, but I can send some. He's like, yeah, whatever. And he gave, you can see the color versions on the website.
Okay, cool. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
And we are actually going to do color versions. We're going to do a Kindle version of the first book with color versions when the second book comes out.
Okay.
And the Kindle version will have color versions of the paintings as well. But Jai, unbeknownst to me or any of our friends, he and his sister were badly abused by their father. And those memories were suppressed in sort of the typical PTSD way where you just put that in a box.
Yeah.
And I guess over the course of time with that type of abuse, when it has not been expressed or talked about or acknowledged in the world, you sort of end up on two tracks, the person you are day to day and the person who was abused. And those things tend to separate, and it causes real problems over the course of time. And it is infuriating to think that we didn't know about it, that we couldn't support him in that journey, that the trauma and the shame of it was so painful for him, but it created a lot of problems for him over the course of his life. And to the point where he ended up getting help. And the help that he got was art therapy. And so they had him on high doses of medication, and he found that the only way that he could keep his hands steady enough to paint was to paint really fast. So he's got videos of him doing some of the art for the book, and it's just like, okay, you need a revolver. And he's just done. And it's just perfect. And it's so intuitive and expressive and just painful to it is haunting. And so it's a perfect sort of capture for the book. He's doing the art for book 2 right now. He's got a massive show in Berlin right now, which he can't be at because of the pandemic.
No.
But it's getting an incredible response. The critics in Berlin are comparing him to Alfred Munch,
the
my Scream.
God. Oh, that's awesome.
And so it's really exciting to have been part of helping provoke him into doing more and more work. And I'm blessed and honored by his friendship and the fact that he was willing to do it and got him at a really good starting rate. I think the hardest thing, it was difficult to promote a book in the middle of a pandemic because you can't go to bookstores.
Absolutely.
And so the plan that we had made was to do a massive art show, red carpet, champagne, and do like a reading of the book in Los Angeles and have the Troy Bakers and Ashley Johnsons of the world and all my dear friends come and make it a media event and be able to promote it in that way.
Yes.
And so it was, I really was very disappointed that we weren't able to do something like that where people could come and see his art presented in a gallery format. But I'm very excited that it's sort of the Berlin art world is one of my dogs.
Aww.
Has taken him under his wing and sees what you all see in his work.
Oh, it's amazing.
It really is like the most perfect companion too, because I think it elevates everything that every time I read something, because it gives me something to kind of almost picture at the same time. It kind of encapsulates the entire mood and helps give it like another level. Which is not something you always get with when you get the chance to sit down and read something. I'm very, very fortunate because he works in sort of such an intuitive sense. He really, I think, captured each chapter's essence. Yeah.
I've been reading, rereading James Clavell's Shogun. I'm going to play Ghost of Tsushima shortly. And I thought that would be a good way to sort of look back. And it's a book from 1976, so a lot of the ideas are outdated, and I'm sure that there are problems with the presentation of Japan and samurai culture.
Absolutely.
But there's also some really beautiful moments and ideas. And the idea that a piece of art, once it's created, has its own spirit.
Yep. That
it lives in the world, the same world that the spirits do, that the world of a kami or a ghost does. And I really can see that clearly, particularly because of Jai's work.
Oh yeah, it's it was one of the first things that grabbed my attention as I just went to the book and I was like, these are amazing, like, oh my god. And I could kind of picture what it's gonna be like to read the book because of this artwork. So I was like, ooh, I like this because I am the big war fan. Like I love war movies and I know a lot about war. So when I saw your book, I was like, hey, this is for me. It was written for me. And then I just I started reading it and then I was like, yep, it's definitely a win for me.
Good. I'm glad. I'm honored. I mean, I think that I come from sort of my generation. Post-Vietnam, we got served up a lot of culture that promoted war in ways that were incredibly unhealthy.
Yeah.
I think the shame of walking out of Vietnam and the things that we did and failed to do there colored culture for probably 15, 20 years after that. And one of the first time I really, my grandfather, my mom's dad, fought in the First World War. She was the youngest of 7, and he died in the early 40s. But he was 19 years old and a pioneer infantryman for the U.S. Army in late 1917 into 1918. And she lost cousin in Vietnam, and the whole sort of that war had a huge impact on how she looked at the world. And she would get so frustrated by how much my brother and I loved all these war movies. She said, look, if you're going to write a war movie, then the hero should die halfway through. It should be a black screen the rest of the way, because that's what war is. It's the end of these young men, done.
Yep.
And that had a profound impact on how I started to look at telling war stories later on. It is instead of this sort of idea of this, the appeal of testing yourself in the way that young men are taught or are organically drawn to the idea of testing your strength against other men. And the toxic nature of that is it is, I think, a story that's important to tell.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And lately, so to just kind of rail the conversation towards the movies as well, there are more and more war movies that include horror, like Ghosts of War was something that came out recently, Overlord and movies like that. Do you have a plan on making your books into maybe a TV series or a movie? You never know.
I think, look, I think the initial idea when I realized what I wanted to write, I did have conversations with studios and stuff about how it could be a show.
Okay.
It is very difficult to get anyone to say, yeah, we want to spend $10 million plus an episode for a show from someone who's sold one series as a writer and does not bring 20 million viewers to the table.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a dicey proposition. I mean, it is a huge lift. It would require perfection from the directors and whoever came in to adapt it into a show. Because the last thing you want, when you think of it from a novelist point of view, the last thing you would want would be a subpar adaptation.
Yep,
absolutely.
What's the the guy recently? Oh God, what is it? I guess probably better even not to name names. There's an author who's like, they bought my books, they made them into the worst series of movies ever, and it just like it embarrasses me every time I think about it.
Wasn't that the Percy Jackson?
Yes, Percy Jackson.
Rick Riordan.
Rick Riordan. There you
go. He's been very public about his dislike for those movies that they made out of his books.
Yeah, well, as a writer, you are in a position of having very little power when it comes to that. So I settled into the idea of, make the time, write the 5 books. It will either find an audience or it will not. If it finds a really, really big audience, then maybe you have some power over what that adaptation would look like. If it doesn't find an audience, it's not going to be a TV series or a series of films or anything anyway. But I know that I have to, having begun it, I intend to get to the end of it and do it to the best of my ability. And I can't control anything. When you start to imagine controlling things that you have zero control over, you get yourself into all kinds of headaches and heartbreaks.
Yep.
It's very true.
It is. It's the truest thing.
I will say, I said this to Lily, there are times reading it that I feel like it reads, like there are elements of it that feel kind of scripty to me. So I think it would make a really good TV show if that were to ever become a thing.
Yes, and we are happy to help you work on it, and we can do runner jobs, and I am excellent at dying. Just putting it out there.
Perfect. There'll be a lot of death.
Yes.
I mean, it would be great if it ever finds that world, but I can't. All I can do is all I can control. And sometimes that's a dicey bargain is myself, and what I do in the world, and then you just have to be patient and take it as it comes, because most of the time it doesn't work out that way, and you have to be able to accept the victory the same way you accept the defeat. Otherwise, life just goes up and down and up and down and up and down, and that's I've lived enough of my life like that to not want that to be my daily mode of operation.
I understand that completely.
Yep, 100%. You've been in so many TV shows throughout the years that we looked through your filmography. Obviously, we watched a lot of those TV shows because Katie and myself as well, we love TV shows. You were in one of my favorite ones, which is Eli Stone, and I was heartbroken when they canceled that. I was like, no, don't take Eli away. But it begs the question as what inspired you to become an actor?
I really early on cut off any other venues of possible advancement. I
get that one.
I knew what I wanted to be early. And that was a sword fighder. I wanted to be a fencer. And
I noticed the sword that's hanging up behind you. I was gonna ask you about it.
Two, there's a samurai sword up there. Over there's another rapier over there.
Oh, cool.
So in fourth grade, I convinced my mom to let me take this I don't know, in the late 1970s, early 1980s, that I would take the subway alone into Washington, D.C., walk from the subway to the fencing instructor and take fencing classes.
Oh.
No, fifth grade. And so she was like, okay, because this was, I don't know, I would never let my kid do it. She's in fifth grade. I'm like, yeah, take the subway into DC alone and go take fence class. We'll pick you up when you're done.
My mum wouldn't let me go into town without, like, if I were to go anywhere else, she's like, you have to text me if you leave anywhere and go to a different location. I need to know where you are at all times. It
was a different world. I certainly didn't have a phone. I mean, it was we ran free. Like basically in the summer, we would house in the morning and come back at 6:30 for dinner, bloody and scraped, but we survived it. It worked out okay. And then so I was like, I either want to be Harrison Ford or I want to be an Olympic level fencer. And so I gave up fencing when I got cast as the lead in the school play. And I was like, well, this is the thing. I can do all the sword fighting and never actually, and it looks a lot cooler than just fencing. And, and I was hooked. So I sort of held on to that through my teenage years as best I could, while also running off the rails in every other way you could possibly imagine. Somehow survived that to reach, 19 and moved to Los Angeles and crashed right into a brick wall and ended up with everything I owned strapped my motorcycle on Hollywood Boulevard, thinking, how the fuck did this happen? Like, well, because you're 19 and you have no idea how to survive in the world. And it was a great sort of a learning curve in terms of realizing, oh, there's a lot I do not know. And I was really fortunate to make my way back across the country to Virginia and get my act together. And I started working with Washington Shakespeare Company at the time, and then started tour. Spent 2 years touring with American Shakespeare Center out of Virginia. We toured the whole U.S. and Canada, and all of a sudden I found myself like teaching at universities, teaching workshops, and then apprenticed to a stage combat maestro at Shakespeare and Company in Berkshires in Massachusetts, and had 2 of the best years of my life, getting paid $250 a week to do what I absolutely love.
That's awesome.
Then New York, then Los Angeles, with a much better head on my shoulders, and knew how to wash dishes and do laundry and be a responsible, decent human being, and it all seems to have worked out okay.
The essence of life.
Yeah, that's the short version, I guess.
I love that. Was there any movie that inspired you to go more towards, the screen?
I mean, I love the film of the 1970s and into the 80s. The Godfathers, and at least the first 2.
Yep.
The third one would just sort of pretend that didn't happen. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yep. I mean, I pretend that the other Indiana Jones movies didn't happen either. I was thinking about, like a movie like The Mission. Do you know The Mission? Jeremy Irons and Robert De Niro.
Yes.
I'm going to look it up.
It is a phenomenal film. And that's the kind of film that was getting made before they realized they could make $1 billion off of film if it was not challenging. It is sort of the long and the short of that is it's a study of it's about the sort of rape of the New World by the Portuguese and the Spaniards in South America. Yeah. And it is a very unhappy ending, but it introduced me to all of that history. So the sort of storytelling of that culturally was profound in terms of looking at the world in a new way. And I don't see big movies getting made that tell those kind of stories. Yep. I would love to, I loved 1917, but it does not, and it introduces us to that war and that time period really well, but not with the historical context, not with an understanding of these are the things that led to a war that was absolutely pointless for everyone involved. And they just kept at it so that they could find a way to declare victory. And all these people died for nothing. Yep. And so, but then in the mission, in 2 hours, they tell all of that history within that encapsulated time, space and time. And I would love to see a World War I movie that accomplishes that, but you can't, nobody's going to put out the money to do that well enough at this point to tell a story that may not have the appeal that 1917 had. In terms of like, you leave the theater really fucking depressed. Yep. Which is necessary. It is. In sort of teaching. It's necessary to, but that's not what they want to make. So even writing The Reckoning, I had to sort of say, okay, the horror is the hook. The idea that you can compel an audience and entertain them, and then along with it to be able to give really sharp bites of history in with it is what is driving me as a storyteller.
I mean, it definitely comes through. I was surprised as how many facts you were able to put in, even though I'm just not even at half through the book, and I was like, that is awesome to me, like for me personally, one of my all-time favorite movies is Saving Private Ryan. And we talked about this with Katie, that especially the beginning when they showed the D-Day, that it is just so well put together, and it's horror, it's pure horror of the war and everything, and I kind of miss that too lately in movies, as of like portray that as it is, like show it to us, and I think one of the best TV shows that did it was Band of Brothers, which is also Spielberg and Hanks. So like it's that's why for me, I honestly just cannot wait to go back and read your book, because it's refreshing to have basically everything that I always looked for in there, and being that historical, being that horror, which I love. Like that's my jam. And it's like, I'm not gonna take down my beanie, but let's pretend I took it down and just take your hat off. I mean, it's awesome, honestly.
Please, as you make your way through it, I would love to hear your thoughts or questions or anything as it goes. It is, the idea of the difficulty, I think, of being a novelist. And this is my first time being a novelist. If there's a difficulty, it is creating the piece and not knowing if it's getting seen, because it is a difficult market to make your way into without sort of being Stephen King.
Yeah, that's true.
And you do not want to sort of create a piece of art and have it exist in a vacuum.
Yeah.
That's but it's funny. Eli Stone,
that's my gem.
He is one of the absolute most genuine stars of a show that I've ever met.
Oh, I think that's so good to hear.
I only worked with Johnny for like 2 days, and he was lovely and welcoming and everything that you want when you show up on a set. But then it had to be 2.5 weeks later, I was running in the trails in Griffith Park, and he came down the hill and he said, hello, Jeffrey. It's like, what? How the fuck did you even remember my name, much less that we're totally out of context and passing each other? I mean, it was an incredibly genuine experience, and I think said a great deal about who he is as a human being. So it was that was a lovely little experience.
Oh, that warms my heart. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I know, because I'm very good at this, and I made sure to go through and have a look and see what you've done before. But I was kind of going through and being like, oh my God, Criminal Minds, Castle. My mum watches a lot of NCIS Los Angeles. And then we both, because I was going through and kind of talking about this with my mother before we both pointed out that you're in The Tomorrow People, which we both loved when it was on. We were sad that it didn't get to go on for us any longer than it did.
Me too. It was a great bunch of people too.
Yeah. I mean, Night Shift, you've been in everything.
Yeah, that's what I was like, oh my God, so many things. Like, it must be so awesome to do these TV shows. Like, we just had a conversation with Rick Worthy, who's a dear friend of mine. And, you know, he's been in many things as well. And he said that the experience is so deep sometimes that it's worth it. Like, you know, he loves going around and just do different things because it's always a new experience.
Yeah, you know, I think that it's interesting because Hollywood has this reputation. Well, you know, that people are difficult and you run into assholes all the time. And the truth is, the number of people that I've met who've been difficult to work with it's in the single digits, the low single digits. Most of the people 99% of the people that you come across on any set are just lovely, grateful to be there,
that's so cool.
Hardworking and devoted to what they do. And just because, look, no one wants to hire an asshole.
Yeah.
Because they know what they're getting and they know that they're going to have to deal with them after 5 days of, 10, 12, 14-hour days. And you don't want to subject yourself or anybody else around you to that kind of abuse.
Absolutely.
So fortunately, yeah, we see a lot of assholes. We when people act badly, we find out about it. And it has an impact on their careers, and it lowers the chances of you ever having to come into contact with them as a working actor because nobody wants that around.
Yeah.
So I feel really, really fortunate to have had a long-standing, pleasant experience as an actor. It's been good fortune. It's been forcing myself to get up and do the things that I know I need to do, which I think everybody can understand in terms of the way that you approach the world. But it's all sort of worked out really better than I could have imagined. I'm very grateful for it. And video games in particular.
Yes.
have loved being involved with that. Working with Naughty Dog has been in many ways the highlight of my career because I don't think I've ever done anything that was so universally successful in what the Neil wanted to do, what Naughty Dog wanted to achieve with it. They, rarely do you sit down and say, this is what we're going to do. This is what's going to feel like. This is what's going to look like. And it executes exactly what the artist's intention was. So it's I think that I would put my experience in games up with anything that I've experienced in TV and film in terms of the pleasure of the experience.
I was curious as to whether or not you were more of a film or a TV person.
Yes.
Just sort of generally speaking, in terms of like what you like to consume rather than what you like to be in. Although what you'd like to be in is also good to hear too.
Yeah, both.
I am I'm happy whenever I get hired, so I'm generally okay with whatever comes. These days, I mean, I think that the streaming model is stunning. The ability to tell story in a cinematic way, episode by episode, 10, 20, 6, 30, 40 hours is I think, the ideal way for us to be able to consume story these days.
Yep.
And but I'll go back and watch The Godfather or The Mission or any Marlon Brando, Montgomery Clift movie anytime. I don't see it's happened. It's ever. Unfortunately, Star Wars, which was the sort of cornerstone of my understanding of philosophy and film as a child, ruined movies. You're not seeing Dog Day Afternoon or Serpico or they just don't make. They literally don't make Taxi Driver.
Right.
Yep. That's true.
And even the Scorseses of the world are asked to do something. Can you go further than that? Can you make something, epic? And it's like, well, I'd rather see Scorsese make a great $20 million film than $100 million. Let's see what he would do with that at this stage in his career.
Yeah.
But they don't want to greenlight stuff like that
anymore. Yeah.
And it's just not. They're just, because the idea is like, if it didn't make $1 billion, how can it be successful?
Absolutely. I've spoken about this many times about how much I miss like mid-budget sort of movies. And how I wish that Hollywood would take more of a chance on original IPs. And just like I mean, John Wick came out 6 years ago or something like that. That was kind of one of the first big action movies that had that mid-budget bracket that it fit in, and that did very well, which is why it's now gone and done like 4 other movies.
Four or five.
But it's like it was, it was an original story, and it had a reasonably sort of sized budget, and it went on to be successful. And it's like, well, if you have this, if that's possible, why won't you go ahead and actually take maybe the occasional more risk? And obviously the answer is money, because they don't get.
It's. I mean, I think that video games are the future of storytelling, and I don't know if video games will be the proper way to talk about it 5 years from now. I don't see. I love that they are making an HBO show out of The Last of Us.
Yes,
I think that Chernobyl is one of the most stunning pieces of work. It is just perfect, perfectly written, perfectly cast, perfectly shot and directed. Everything about it is, it was a beautiful experies with Academy Award level performances from everybody.
Yeah.
The Naked Miner. I was like, this guy, why is this not guy not getting an Emmy too? I mean, they really, it's just exceptional. And I think that it's interesting, because I think about this a lot recently in terms of what storytelling is and why we need it as a species. And if you look back at sort of the earliest iterations of what storytelling would have been, it would have been an incredibly interactive medium. You either would have been part of the story around the fire or a witness to some degree, but it was about sort of saying, okay, this is what our culture is, and these are the things that we need as a group to survive, and this is how we pass that information on to our children and incorporate it into our way of looking at the world.
Yeah. And
that's still the purpose of story, but it's not something people put a lot of thought into, I think. It's more like, not to denigrate George R.R. Martin, but, can I make these dramatic turns that keep the audience coming back, as opposed to saying, no, this is the story we're trying to teach people with. And then the Greeks took that and expanded it and made it this massive experience. And the Romans ran with that. And then William Shakespeare is like, how do I make money and write a lot of plays and get everybody there and tell some good stories at the same time? Some classic stories, I'm just going to adapt them and keep feeding the sort of idea of this exchange, but also find a way to make money off of it, which was, I think Shakespeare's like, his main reason for doing what he did was let's all get paid and have enough money for beer after the show, which is, basically an actor's life in general. Yeah. How do we get paid to have enough money for beer after the show? But as we got into the world of like having a focused light on the stage, where the audience was separated by the proscenium, the experience of being an interactive member of that experience was gone. You could sit back and be a passive viewer, which is a horrible way to experience Shakespeare in general, because I don't think I've ever seen a good. I mean, I saw like the brilliant Richard III, and it was but it was terrible. I fell asleep. It was like 3 hours long, and you're not part of the action. Whereas that's written to be, he's supposed to be talking directly to you, as Shakespeare would have intended.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to interact with story. That's sort of like in our genetic makeup. Video games are the one place besides live theater that's not in a proscenium where you are part of the story, where you expected to be a part of the story, where the illusion is created that you are involved in the storytelling and involved in the experience.
Yep.
And I think that as long as Neil Druckmann is brilliant as a storyteller. And I think that if we can understand that the medium needs storytellers of that caliber in all games, then games can suddenly become the place where we go to for a real artistic cultural exchange and an experience and a feeling that you leave it changed. You walk into a movie theater, you walk into a play, you want to be moved and changed by the experience. That's the entire purpose.
Yep.
If you just had fun, if it was just, then it was a waste of 2 hours. Because the idea is that you're going there to commune with your fellow human beings in a way where we can see the things that we have in common and be affected in ways that we're all capable of being affected. Understand that we're like an organic mass of what we think of as individuals, but we're all part of this same, we're all connected to each other in that way. So if I don't see that in the theater, I'm not going to go. If I don't see that in a movie, I'm not going to watch it. And for the most part, if I don't have that happening in a game, I'm not going to play it, because it can be great. The game experience can be fun.
Yeah.
But I want what I got from The Last of Us. I want what I got from The Last of Us Part 2. I want to be killed by it and changed.
Many times over.
Many times over.
Yeah.
so much death.
Yeah.
It's
I was like metaphorically killed.
Both ways works.
Both things happened with it. I'm going to be honest.
It's, if we are honest. And talking about like when you mentioned the theater and being interactive. While I did theater, for me, what was most important in all of the plays that we did is to interact with the audience. I was like, there's no point in doing it for ourselves to just be on the stage if we are not going to bring in the audience. So, for example, we always made sure that sometimes we would come down from the stairs from behind them and then, just start talking to one of them and stopping next to them or something like that. And it works wonders. Like the audience enjoys not just sitting there and just watching something that plays in front of them, but actually feeling like that the characters are with them and they are part of the story. And I think what you said about video games definitely is I agree on 100% level. Like The Last of Us is easily a huge experience, I think, for both of us with Katie.
I would show you, but I think it would end up being a bit iffy on the camera. But I literally have the Last of Us poster up there.
Yeah, me too. So we are big fans, and you are awesome as Tommie. We just have to say it out loud, like, come on.
I was very pleased to find out that you weren't dead after
yep.
that whole sequence in part
it
2.
was like,
I was like, oh man,
not alive.
he's not dead.
Although it begs the question.
He's not well though.
He's not well.
How did Tommie survive that shot?
I mean, I think that the research that Neil did was that it was small caliber at such a short range.
Okay.
That it just blew. That a clean shot through came out the cheekbone and
so it was like more like down
it's
here.
like that.
Yeah.
Raul Espanza plays a character in Hannibal who has a very similar thing happen to him, where he gets like shot right through the face.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he ends
yeah.
up surviving.
But there's it's interesting. I mean, the number of people who commit suicide shooting themselves in the mouth and miss their brain entirely.
Yeah.
And survive it.
Yeah.
It's so there is I think a precedent for it. Yeah, Tommie's just a lucky motherfucker, I guess.
Thank God. Like, honestly,
lucky in terms of life, but everything else that he has going on, I feel like
that's a little bit snake bit.
Yeah, he's got a lot of trauma all up in himself now. I think that he probably needs to work through properly. Only there were therapists in the apocalypse.
Yeah, they all died off a long time ago.
Oh, God.
Nobody's doing couch sessions. Yeah, it is. Yeah, Tommie is one of the has been one of the great joys of my. You know, I love the people that I've got to meet through the experience and to work with, and the character really feels.
It feels human.
Genetically part of me. You know, it's a very easy fit.
Mm.
And yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, I mean that I cannot personally imagine how it is like to work with mocap and things like I love watching the behind the scenes for The Last of Us or you know, now many of the games are made like that. But what is it like to actually be on set and, you know, have these mocap suits on? And I'm guessing it's much more different than doing a movie or a TV series.
I'll imagine that with your experience in theatre, it's probably very similar to that, though, just with silly costumes.
Yeah, I think that ultimately it is much more freeing for the imagination to not have all of the impediments, because at the same time as you're in a kitchen and there's a coffee maker and there are actual real things, there's sugar, and they've done an incredible job of propping it. It's perfect. You're also having to sort of void the camera and the cameraman and everything else that's going on. So this sort of there is an amount of your imagination that's spent imagining that they are not there. It's much easier on a bare stage with boxes and spare props to let your imagination just run. And so you don't have to think about this. It's all about the connection between the characters and to the events that are occurring. So I find it in many ways a simpler, much more like a kid just playing, which is what we're doing, except we do it with usually like costumes and props. But in a mocap stage, you really are liberated if you let it liberate, I guess. And having a history on stage has been really helpful.
I bet. And then it begs the question: is Last of Us your favorite game, or do you play in general? With
I play. I am not. I would not say I am a gamer. There are just not enough hours in the day for me to satisfy that. Although I could be if I had the time. So I play the games that I'm in, and then sort of dip my toe in. Like when it goes through Tsushima, I cannot wait to play it. It's been out for a while, and I think I should have some time next month to get into it post-election, unless we're in full revolution at that point.
We'll see.
But it's difficult for me to get engaged in something, like I said, like if it doesn't move me the way that The Last of Us did, and I think that's a really rare thing, I don't know that I have 15, 30 hours to devote to the journey. I want to be at this stage in my life really, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to choose the things that are in front of me. I don't want to just dive in and devote time to things that are maybe going to end up feeling like that was an extraneous waste of time. And I think that I would say that I'm hopeful that the success of The Last of Us is not just giving Naughty Dog the chance to tell risky stories. I hope that other developers and I hope that other big companies putting money out there will say, okay, we want to take some real bold, decisive risks. We don't want to make these games by committee. We want to find our Neil Druckmann and let him or her, be the auteur. They're going to say, this is the story I want to tell. This is how I want to tell it. These are the people I'm bringing together to do that. You guys want to finance that? Let's go make a game together. Because that's the way that video games will go beyond the standard. Well, let's just make $1 billion and let's let the executives fuck it up in the process because they're risk averse.
Yeah.
Which is what happens. I mean, their job is to be risk averse because they're spending other people's money, but that does not make them good creative arbiters of what's a good story to tell them. Yeah. So maybe people with a lot more firepower initially, maybe the James Gunns of the world get into video games. That these people who know how to take risks and have a track record to say, I'm going to do a game.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring these people together and I want you to finance it because we're going to make $1 billion telling stories that need to be told. So that's
100%.
So soapbox on games.
I know I'm somebody who is a big advocate for getting more people of a more diverse background to be in these rooms where we can actually have them tell their own stories. Because
Absolutely.
it's like one hand, representation is incredibly important, but that has to exist behind the camera as well, or behind the creative team and what have you, so that we end up having people who are telling authentic stories as opposed to having people hearing about their stories and trying to tell it through like another lens. Otherwise you end up sort of filtering it down and it becomes less than it should have been. I don't think you get a proper or authentic experience from somebody unless you have them tell it themselves and unless you let them put their team together and absolutely make it from their perspective, as opposed to just somebody else who's like, I like that idea, I'm going to use your story and make it into something from my perspective.
It is a difficult needle to thread. I mean, I think that it is occurring, and I think that it can't be anything but healthful for society as a whole. In my book, I had to say, okay, I am intentionally going to be looking at different cultures and different races, men and women, and using their stories. So how, if I'm only going to tell the story of whitish men, I don't think that that's a story that the world needs. I think we've had the stories of whitish men. Those have been our cultural lodestar for centuries.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, in approaching the book and saying, well, I really feel like I need to be able to look culturally well beyond myself. I had to be very, very aware that I was not exploiting or creating stereotypes.
Absolutely.
Or working in a world where my point of view as an ostensibly white man was the lens that I was portraying them through.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that that's the line.
Yeah.
And I think that, but if it were to find life elsewhere, yes, like female director, diverse writers' room from all of those backgrounds, so that as that is taking place, female producer, so that, because then you've got a prism that you're viewing it through, and you get a rainbow out of that experience. But until it is looked at and refracted through all of those ways, I don't think there'd be a way for it it should not find its way culturally from a white man's perspective, because white men have not been great for the world. And I think that I certainly lean into an understanding of that in my storytelling. And hopefully the more history that I'm able, if I'm taking responsibility for my cultural historical background, that I'm able to look without any blinders at what my fucking people done.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in order to, I guess, filter that through view of all these other 12 characters from all these different worlds has been I think the best part of the journey and the most important part of the storytelling that I could bring to the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
yeah. There you go.
No, it's just like we talked about diversity, and we will talk about diversity a lot more in our podcast, because it's the most important thing to talk about. And I said, Katie, this so many times that I am glad to see that change is coming, but also I am still there that it's like fast it up. Just just bring it in, just faster,
we want some more.
just more. That's why I appreciate that Lovecraft Country is existing, because it is fucking beautiful. I don't have better words for it. It's so good.
It is, from the journey, from my start as an actor in Los Angeles in 1996 to now, the industry has changed dramatically, and it breaks my heart for my Black brothers and sisters who had one opportunity for every 100 that I had, and were as talented and as focused and as driven. But it's a numbers game, because you're not going to book 99 out of those 100. If you get one shot for every 15, 20 that the white guy's going to get, how do you hold on? And so watching these, in the first few episodes, is sort of like generational level of Black actors who are amazing. I mean, just breathtakingly talented. From the young woman. I mean, they just are lovely, talented, skilled craftsmen, and craftswomen as actors. So I am so glad to see that finally taking shape, and it just needs more and more and more and more of that.
I always bring up this thing of like I want to see more like whenever I talk about like mid-budget movies and like having people from various backgrounds coming in and actually directing larger budget things, I'm like, when was the last time you heard of like a Black woman directing a mid-budget like action movie? And then The Old Guard came out, and it was like, oh, there's one.
There's one.
It's like, thank God. I mean, there's one. I'd like some more, but it's a good beginning.
What's his Mudbone? Did you see that?
Yep.
Oh, I heard of that, but I heard really good things about it as well.
Young African-American female director. She is absolutely, it is wonderful. It's in that vein of like, this is a mid-budget film that is done to perfection.
Yep.
It is. So I am excited about what's possible. I'm not excited about what. Culturally, the past 4 years has been this, I think, boomerang to that in the world. Where you see the sort of last gasps of people trying to hold on to a world that never was. And so I'm hopeful that this is the last gasp. I'm in the South right now, and there is a lot of hope down here that things are headed forcefully in the opposite direction. That could all be betrayed in November 3rd. So we'll see where people really actually are when they cast their ballots.
Absolutely.
But I think you can't hold it back. It's coming. And the worst thing that these little white boys are doing is trying to stand in the way of a wave that is coming, that has already washed past them. And the inability to see the world through a new lens and understand that there's real joy and possibility for everybody is embarrassing as hell.
One of the things I absolutely love about stories is their ability to create empathy through like experiences that we have not had in ourselves. So being able to see stories about like lives that I have not led, or that I don't really have any knowledge about, it leads to a place where we are able to create more empathy for that in the real world. is why I think representation is just so important wherever we can find it.
Yeah, I think a transformative moment for me as a human being was in the middle of Schindler's List. I just was sitting in the theater, weeping, just tears. Like, how do people learn to do this to each other? And it's what provoked my wanting to understand the First World War, to understand how did they get to that place. And I'm grateful every day for the way that art introduced me to that possibility, stirred emotions in me that I had shut off from early teenage years up until that point, and opened my eyes to diving into a historical understanding of what brought us to this point.
Absolutely.
It certainly eventually brought me to the book. That's got to be the purpose of what you go out to do. It can be laughter, it can be a comedy, but let's have a real experience as human beings together through culture. That's what film, television, video games, that's the purpose of it. That's why we do it.
Absolutely.
And it's, going back to the games a little bit, I think for me, other than The Last of Us, the other game that hit really hard was Detroit Become Human, which is an interactive game in the best possible way, in my honest opinion. And I felt like that it is such a mirror to our whole way of living and how, the things that happen in there, and how the android, the AIs decide to rise up and say that enough is enough. Come on. And it freaking broke my heart to play those parts, because you can't help but think that this was real, this is still real, and this is still something that's happening in the world.
It sounds like sort of it's a way to look at slavery, in terms of it's interesting. We're talking on devices that probably had an element of forced or slave labor in the construction of these fucking computers and phones and electronics, and we don't swallow that. We don't recognize that that's part of our day-to-day experience now in 2020. And when will we be willing to sort of really digest that and change it? I don't know, because the people who sell these things are making a lot of money.
Too much money. To be fair, it's like, well,
an embarrassing amount of money.
Yep. So yeah, it's a very, it's a talk that can go on for like hours and hours, and I think what we can say about it is that change is very much needed on so many parts of our lives, but we definitely need more diversity. We definitely need change to come, and hopefully it's coming. It's just fucking slow, so speed up, guys.
It's slow.
Speed up.
Go faster. Yeah.
Go faster.
Yeah. It's a gas pedal. Hit the gas.
Yes. Just go.
Driving with my dad. Dad, you can go faster. I know it says 30. 30 is not the speed. Go 35 at least. 39.
We can leave with that, I think. And now it's weird question time. I love weird questions.
Oh, good.
So you're gonna get a weird one.
Excellent.
Lily loves her weird questions.
Yes. If we would have a machine that can put you in any single movie that you can think about, what movie would that be, and who would you play?
See, that's an interesting question, because then you have to sort of go down the level of like insecurity of like, well, could I pull that character off? Would I be good enough to do that? So if I were to sort of, because I, as an actor, you have to think pragmatically, what are they going to let me do? But if I am freed of that, I would absolutely be. Yeah, I'm not saying that I could do it, but I wanted to be Indiana Jones more than I wanted to be anything as a kid. So I would definitely be experience Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm not saying that I would be great in that part, but that's if I were just going to have an adventure and play that part and experience that world, it would be Indiana Jones.
I think that's a really good answer.
It is. It is.
And speaking of performances, Karen Allen in that movie is doing extraordinary work. I mean, back to the 1970s era of filmmaking, she came from that world. And that is the level of acting. She deserved an Academy Award for that performance because she is brilliant in it.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. India, I mean, you did mention that you wanted to be Harrison Ford, so I think it's
yeah.
It started with Han Solo and rode straight into Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I think you can nail Indiana Jones. You would take a different take maybe.
I don't think anybody could do what he did in that film. I mean, he just is. Forget about it.
There are some roles like that.
Sean Connery as Bond. Those are. Boy, Tom Selleck would have been terrible as Indiana Jones.
That's very fair. For me, it's Tom Hanks. Like no one can beat Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump. I'm just gonna put that out there.
That's true. Absolutely.
It's like no, don't even try. Just
unbeatable.
Yep. Katie, do you have a weird question as well?
I don't have any weird questions. I've got normal questions.
Katie, you're not fun.
Oh man, I mean, the one I really like hearing about is whether or not if there have been any movies in the past couple of years that have really excited you about.
That's just a fair question.
Like, movies in general, or even TV shows. I mean, we could talk about video games, but I feel like Last of Us kind of carries that slot.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. 1917 was incredible. It was technical achievement. But
Roger Deakins.
Oh man, beautiful. I mean, they don't have there's not a better cinematographer. It's stunning. Yeah. And the level of detail I loved because I know that world so well. I've done so much research that they just absolutely killed it. Babylon Berlin, have you seen that?
Yes.
Oh, I have not. Yeah, personally.
Fantastic.
It is wonderful.
Watch it with the subtitles, with the German performances. They are doing great work as actors, and it is really impressive filmmaking. I think it's the most expensive thing they've ever done in Germany, and I loved it. I love all that sort of Art Deco as well. So the period is really interesting, and the time period historically as the sort of rumblings of Nazism start to come to the surface in the midst of a detective drama. I loved it. Really, really exceptional. I think those are my sort of two
big ones.
Two of my big ones in the past 2-3 years, I think.
Okay.
I don't watch a lot of broadcast TV.
Okay.
Maybe it's because I've done so much of that for a living. That most of the stuff that I try to sort of devour is streaming these days. That's sort of. I think that broadcast TV, if it can't learn to compete with what's being done in the streaming world, as long as they're based on a commercial model, it's very hard for me to sit down and enjoy.
Yeah.
I love it. Fargo is amazing.
Yes, I've heard really good things about Fargo.
Yeah, really, really cool. And very diverse in its storytelling. Handmaid's Tale is some pretty perfect television too. That's sort of that's the ballpark that I've been in for entertainment.
That's fair enough.
It's very good ballpark.
If you like 1917 and you like the one-shot movies, I will recommend one because I don't think many people know this. It's a German film called Victoria, and it's completely one shot.
I've heard about this.
It's a mind-blowing film. Like, you are so confused at the beginning, and you're kind of bored at the beginning. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I don't know how I feel about this film. And then it just switches halfway through and you're like, Jesus Christ, what happened in this movie?
Okay.
So I would say Victoria is definitely one of them. And it was directed by Sebastian Schipper. And it's a wonderful, wonderful film. You just have to get through the bit of a boring part, but it's worth it. It's worth it. So I highly recommend.
I'll check it out.
Yes.
Thank you for the recommendation.
And since you like apocalyptic and kind of things, I would say Kingdom would be a winner for you.
Oh yeah.
And I just
Kingdom,
recommend
which Kingdom, the period piece or the MMA?
The period piece, the Korean TV show.
Okay.
It's
cool. My one of my dearest friends, Jonathan Tucker, was in a show called Kingdom. Family drama on Netflix about the MMA world, and his work in that is some of the finest acting I've ever seen. It's maybe not a show for everybody, but his performance is what I would tell any young actor to look at and say, if you can achieve that level of charm and danger and charisma, then you should be an actor.
I love that.
It's a stunning performance.
Yeah, it's on the list, but I started with the Zombie Kingdom, so
cool.
Me and my horror troops, I just have to have them.
It's good.
And I wanted to ask, because I am not sure, are your dads in the book? Are they zombies?
No, I think that as you get further into it, that when we start to see the world through their eyes as well, it is something that I don't know that's been done. So that sort of starts to find its way in over the course of the books. I don't want to give you a spoiler, but yes, these are not just sort of ravenous, thoughtless creatures. They are us.
That's even scarier.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I read the prologue and there's that scene in there, I was like, are these zombies? It's because it kind of felt like they are zombies, but I believe you. I mean, you wrote it.
It's they are certainly undead, but it is not in the there are calculations.
Okay.
That they are purposeful in their deeds and in their thoughts, and we do very much end up living inside of their experiences over the course of the journey, which brings another half dozen characters into the mix. But they're sort of but as we sort of start to experience their rising up, I think it brings a really interesting, unique perspective to it, and gets us into more history in ways that I think are really open the door for what happens in too.
Oh,
exciting!
I like that.
Have to read some more tonight.
Yes, me too. I'm like, I mean, I kind of figured, because it was also in the prologue when the she-wolf fights Harry. And then he comes back and there's these visions of past lives, I guess. It was like, this is like really interesting to look at, and I think that's why my question at the beginning came, that this could be, I could imagine this on my TV, watching it as a TV show, because it's such a unique look at this world, and I just love it. I'm a fan, as you can tell.
The nice thing is I have no constraints over what the budget would be, so I can just paint as big as I want to. But yeah, achieving just that opening sequence as we travel into Harry's new experience would be really expensive.
It was.
It is. The sort of a lot of the conceptually sort of Dante's Inferno informed it. So bringing, so I'm able to sort of track like what these sort of, the she-wolf is part of the beginning of the journey into the sort of into the Inferno. Part of the sort of precursor on the Good Friday in Dante's Inferno. So I wanted to sort of being able to draw from those things and make them feel practical in the storytelling was one of the fun parts of writing.
I bet. Cool. Yeah, it's really, really cool, honestly. You can pick up Jeffrey's book from many places, thank God. I picked myself up from Book Depository. I can't say the word.
Story?
Then thank you. But if I'm correct, that I saw it on Amazon as well.
Yeah, I got mine off Amazon, so I think it's on.
It's on Amazon. You can go to the website, thereckoningseries.com. And you can see all of the art in the gallery section there. See all the art in full color. And there are some excerpts from the audiobook. And the audiobook is on Audible. I think you can get it free if you do a 30-day trial.
Yeah.
So get it for free if you can. And I did all the voices in the book, which was a process unto itself.
Excellent.
But yeah, the website, thereckoningseries.com is a very good place to start.
Yes.
Spectacular.
We will put everything in the description below. And before we go on our happy ways, Jeffrey, do you have a recommendation for our watchers and listeners of any film or TV show that you want them to definitely see 100%?
TV show or movie that you have to see. Let's go back. The Young Lions.
Oh,
with Marlon Brando and Dean Martin and Montgomery Clift.
Okay.
It is a World War II black and white. Maximilian Schell, I think, is in it as well. And it is the story of Brando plays an officer in the German army, and Dean Martin and Montgomery Clift are American soldiers, and it traces their sort of journeys back and forth over the course of the war until they finally confront each other in the final days. And it's some absolutely masterful performances. So it's not a movie that a lot of people have seen. I have no idea if it's available like to download for streaming. You might have to find a DVD somewhere, but it is. It comes from the sort of the height of those great artists.
Oh, I like that. I haven't seen it. This is one of the first war movies that I haven't seen.
Oh, good. I think
for you.
It's something new. I like it. Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
You truly honored us.
It was great talking to you both, and I wish you nothing but success with the journey.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very
we
much
appreciate it.
That.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And once again, thank you for Troy, David, and Tom for allowing us to be on their platform. And you can watch this on YouTube. And you can listen to it on our Anchor platform, which we also gonna post in the description. And this was a fun talk, and I truly enjoyed it. Go buy Jeffrey's book; it's fucking amazing.
Very good.
And Ray, The Last of Us, like
obviously.
Wait, absolutely. the other side.
At this point, I'm done.
It's just amazing, and take care. Wear your mask.
You too. It's a pleasure. Stay safe, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.